You don't realize how much you're chained to the approval of others until you try to break free. It's like waking up one day and seeing the strings tied to your limbs, strings you didn't even know were there. You crave the nod, the smile, the "you're good enough," because without it, a cold emptiness gnaws at your chest, and that emptiness is terrifying. So you chase the fleeting relief like a drug. But what if I told you there are people who don't need that? Who walk through life untouched by the hunger for validation, anchored in a place so deep that no outside voice can shake them. Maybe you felt this too, the restless itch beneath your skin every time you wait for someone to approve your choices, your words, your very existence. The silent question always hovering, am I enough? The way your mind spirals, trying to anticipate every judgment, every unspoken critique, that anxious pulse when likes don't come, when messages go unanswered, when the applause is silent. It's a shadow that follows you in every room, every conversation, every glance at the mirror. But here's the truth few dare to say out loud. Needing validation is not weakness, it's survival. It's the nervous system's desperate attempt to keep you alive in a world that demanded you fit into a mold, perform on cue, and silence your deeper truths just to be safe. You learned early that your worth depended on the approval of others, and so you became a master of pleasing, of hiding parts of yourself that scared the people you loved. The more you gave them what they wanted, the safer you felt. Until the line between yourself and their expectations blurred so completely you forgot who you were underneath. Now, imagine what it takes to not need validation, to hold your head high when everyone else's voices scream in your mind, to make decisions rooted in your own compass, not in the fragile hope someone else will say yes, to feel whole when the crowd turns away or the silence grows thick. This is not arrogance. It is a fortress built from battles with loneliness, fear, and relentless self-examination. It is forged in the quiet moments when you face your darkest self and refuse to flinch. You might think they were born this way, untouchable, confident, invincible. But the reality is darker, more human. They reached a point where the cost of living for approval became unbearable. So they stepped off the treadmill of constant seeking, stripped away the masks, and sat alone with the rawness of their being. They looked into the void of no applause and found something unexpected: themselves. Not the image others wanted, but the whole, flawed, powerful self beneath. This transformation is not for the faint-hearted. It demands brutal honesty. You must confront the voice inside that says you're not enough, that you must change, that you're broken. You must learn to sit with discomfort without running, to feel rejection not as a death sentence, but as a signal that someone else's opinion is just that theirs, not yours. You learn to redefine what worth means, not as a reflection of others' eyes, but as a truth held deep within. When you reach this place, you don't just survive relationships, you rewrite them. You no longer bend into shapes that crush your spirit. You don't apologize for your needs or shrink to avoid conflict. You communicate with clarity and hold boundaries without fear. You attract respect because you offer none less to yourself. Your presence becomes magnetic not because you seek attention, but because you embody authenticity. This is the psychology of those who don't need validation. It's not a lack of desire for connection, it's mastery over the craving for approval. It's social intuition sharpened by self-possession. It's a quiet rebellion against the world's demand to perform, conform, and beg for love. And it is the path to freedom. If you hear this in your bones, if the weight of approval still drags at your steps, then stay close. The next chapter will reveal how this psychology forms in the hidden wars of your mind and body, and how you can begin to claim this freedom for yourself. You live every day caught in a tension you barely understand, that tight knot in your chest when someone doesn't reply, the restless churn of doubt when you second-guess your own worth. It's not just in your head, it's embedded deep in your body, in the wiring of your nervous system. The hunger for validation isn't a simple craving. It's a survival code burned into your cells long before you could speak. You grew up learning what love looked like, but the lessons were never clean or clear. Maybe affection was a reward for good behavior, like a currency you had to earn. Maybe silence or anger filled the spaces where love should have been. Or maybe your value was tied to perfection being flawless, so the approval would never dry up. Whatever form it took, your nervous system took notes, creating a map for how to keep yourself safe in a world that felt unpredictable. This map doesn't speak in words. It speaks in tension, in anxiety, in compulsive need. It tells you to scan every glance for judgment, to rehearse every interaction to avoid rejection, to shrink parts of yourself to fit a role that's never quite comfortable. And it's relentless. Because your brain believes that if you don't get the nod, the smile, the sign that you're enough, danger is near. This is why validation becomes a prison, not a gift. Because no matter how much you seek it, the hunger never fully disappears. It demands more likes, more praise, more reassurance. It is an endless cycle, spinning faster each time, wearing down your sense of self until all that's left is the need. But here's the paradox. Those who don't need validation have endured the void where most people fear to tread. They've stared down silence and rejection until those fears lost their power. This doesn't mean they never feel doubt or loneliness. They do. But they've learned that these feelings are not commands. They are signals, indicators that ask for attention, not obedience. Their nervous system has been rewired through what feels like brutal practice. Sitting alone with discomfort, resisting the urge to seek external approval, cultivating an inner voice strong enough to drown out the noise. This is no quick fix or motivational slogan. It's a slow, relentless reclaiming of self from the wreckage of early wounds. Attachment to validation is often linked to early trauma, the subtle and not so subtle ways your early environment taught you that you must earn love or risk losing it. Maybe your caregivers were inconsistent, loving one moment and distant the next. Maybe love was conditional, given only when you met impossible standards. Maybe neglect was the backdrop of your childhood, teaching you that your needs were invisible or unworthy. These early experiences shape your attachment style, the way you relate to others emotionally. An anxious attachment feels like a constant reaching, a desperate need to secure love before it slips away. Avoidant attachment builds walls, pushing others away to avoid the pain of rejection. Disorganized attachment traps you in a chaotic dance between longing and fear. Understanding these patterns is crucial because they are the invisible strings tied to your craving for validation. But recognition alone isn't enough. You must dismantle them. That requires shadow work, confronting the hidden fears and conditioned beliefs that fuel your need for approval. Shadow work means meeting the parts of yourself you've rejected, the vulnerable child, scared of abandonment, the perfectionist, terrified of failure, the people pleaser who sacrifices their own voice. It means holding these parts with compassion, not judgment, and integrating them into your whole self. This integration frees you from unconscious scripts that run your relationships. It stops you from chasing approval in ways that leave you empty. It helps you build relationships based on authenticity rather than performance. But to do this, you must also understand the social dynamics at play. Needing validation is not just an individual issue, it's a social currency shaped by power. When you seek approval, you hand over power to others. You give them the ability to define your worth, to sway your emotions, to control your actions. Those who don't need validation have reclaimed that power. They know that their value is not negotiable, not subject to external whims. They communicate with clarity, set boundaries that protect their energy, and navigate social interactions with confidence rooted in self-possession. This is high-value charisma, not a facade of charm, but the magnetic presence of someone who owns themselves fully. If you feel this tension inside you, the craving for approval mixed with the desire for freedom, then the path ahead is clear but not easy. The final chapter will guide you through practical steps and mindset shifts to dismantle these chains and claim the sovereignty you deserve. Stay close. The journey is just beginning. You've come this far, peeling back layers, confronting the shadows where your need for validation was born. Now, the hard truth. Freedom isn't given, it's taken. It's forged in relentless self-mastery, in the willingness to stand alone when the world expects you to beg for approval. The moment you decide you no longer need validation is the moment you claim your power. But power isn't about dominating others or shouting louder. It's quiet. It's steady. It's a presence so solid it doesn't waver with every opinion or criticism thrown your way. This begins with discipline. Not the discipline of forcing yourself to feel a certain way, but the discipline of observing your emotions without being controlled by them. When doubt creeps in, don't run. Don't reach out for reassurance. Sit with it. Understand its origin. Is it your true self speaking or the echo of an old fear? Set boundaries like a warrior guards his kingdom. Say no to people-pleasing. Say no to bending until you break. Say no to the endless chase for acceptance. Boundaries are the language of self-respect, and they teach others how to treat you. Next, cultivate radical honesty with yourself. Stop lying about what you want, what you feel, who you are. The world may not always like your truth, but living in disguise is a slow death. Embrace solitude as a tool, not a punishment. The people who don't need validation are comfortable alone because they've learned to be their own sanctuary. Solitude sharpens the mind, calms the nervous system, and reconnects you with your inner compass. Transformation also demands shadow integration. That means no more hiding from your anger, your fears, your imperfections. Face them, own them, let them teach you instead of control you. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's the part of you that's been wounded and forgotten, screaming for acknowledgement. When you integrate your shadow, your energy shifts. You no longer radiate desperation for approval. You radiate authenticity. That energy pulls people toward you not because you seek their attention, but because you're fully yourself. You begin to build relationships that honor your sovereignty. You stop tolerating disrespect or emotional manipulation. You attract those who see you clearly, not as a project or a puzzle to fix, but as a whole human being worthy of real connection. This path isn't comfortable. There will be moments when old fears howl to be heard, when loneliness stabs sharper than before, when society's pressure to conform threatens to pull you back into the crowd. But each time you resist, you grow stronger. Each boundary you uphold, each truth you speak, each moment you sit with discomfort without fleeing, you reclaim your freedom. Remember, the psychology of people who don't need validation is not about being flawless or emotionless. It's about mastery, the mastery of self over the unconscious need to be seen, liked, and approved. If this message resonates with the part of you tired of living for others' eyes, then commit. Commit to the hard work, the deep digging, the brutal honesty, because on the other side lies a freedom so profound it changes everything. If you're ready to stop giving away your power and start living on your own terms, then walk this path with me. Subscribe not because you want comfort, but because you crave transformation. because you know the shadows will always be there, but you refuse to be their prisoner any longer. The journey is dark, but the freedom is real, and it begins now.